Easter Sunday, 2025. Pope Francis addresses the world one last time, calling for peace and unity.
Cari fratelli e sorelle, buona Pasqua.
Unbeknownst to many, this would be his final public appearance. The Pope's private residence is serene. At 7:35 a.m., Pope Francis passes away peacefully in his sleep. Cardinal Kevin Farrell, Camerlengo of the Holy Roman Church, announces the Pope's death to the world, his voice heavy with sorrow.
Dolore, devo annunciare la morte del nostro Santo Padre Francesco.
Pope Francis is led to rest at the Basilica of Santa Maria Maggiore. With the Pope's passing, the Church enters a period of mourning and reflection, preparing to elect a new leader. White smoke billows from the Sistine Chapel chimney. The crowd erupts in cheers. Cardinal Robert Prevost is elected as the new Pope, taking the name Leo XIV. A new chapter begins for the Catholic Church, but as the world welcomes Pope Leo XIV, questions arise about his past and the path forward. This is the dark side of Pope Leo XIV.
Your Eminence, I didn't come here lightly. I've carried this burden for years. Years of silence, fear, and unanswered questions. When I was 9, I brought a cake to Father Ricardo. It was his birthday. He told me I was special to him, his little favorite. I believed him. I wanted to believe him. But when he pulled me close, it wasn't just a hug. His hands, they moved beyond any child's understanding. I was confused. I was scared. I didn't scream. I didn't run. I just froze. I felt sick. I wanted to cry, but I couldn't.
Anna Maria, what you endured is unforgivable. I am deeply sorry you had to carry this pain.
Sorry isn't enough. This wasn't an isolated incident. My sisters, Ora Teresa and Juana Mercedes, they were abused too. By Father Eleuterio. During missionary trips, he forced them to share beds with him. They were children. They were terrified.
Vatican's Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith.
Bishop Robert Prevost here. Today I have received a complaint from 3 young women who claimed to have been mistreated by 2 fathers active in my diocese, the Diocese of Chiclayo, Peru.
That is troubling. Did you launch a formal investigation?
No, not yet. The incidents took place between 2006 and 2010, when the girls were minors. Let me launch a preliminary canonical investigation, and I'll send it to your office.
In July 2022, the Diocese of Chiclayo officially sent the sisters' complaint to the Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith, the Vatican's department tasked with investigating sexual abuse. But what happened in the space between that call and that report is where the story begins to blur. Anna Maria said they never asked her anything. No investigator came, no phone call, not even an email. How can there be an investigation when no one speaks to the victims? Despite Prevost's declaration, the sisters say no investigation ever truly happened. No psychological support, no formal interviews, no accountability. The Dicastery later claimed that it had reviewed the case, but in August 2023, they quietly closed it. The reason? Lack of sufficient evidence, and that the statute of limitations had expired. But the sisters believed there was never enough evidence because there was never a real attempt to gather it. And Bishop Prevost? Just months after the sisters complained, he was elevated to the Vatican, appointed by Pope Francis as prefect of the Dicastery for Bishops. placing him among the most powerful men in the church. The man the sisters say didn't protect them was now in charge of choosing new bishops across the world. Did Prevost cover it up in favor of his career? Did he actually launch an investigation? Things we will never know, because the documents that are supposed to be stored in the Vatican will not be released.
Who a bishop is called to be. And as Pope Francis has reminded us many times, a bishop is called to serve. His authority is service. And so to look for different ways in which a bishop can serve in any given society, in any given church, I think is very important. The bishop is not supposed to be a little prince sitting in his kingdom, but rather called authentically to be humble, to be close to the people he serves, to walk with them, to suffer with them, and to look for ways that he can better live the gospel message in the midst of his people.
But before this incident ever happened, in the year 2000, Robert Prevost wasn't a bishop, he wasn't a cardinal, he wasn't sitting in the Vatican reviewing abuse claims or appointing bishops. He was the prior provincial of the Augustinians in Chicago, a respected but modest leadership role in one of America's oldest Catholic orders. That year, a priest named Father James Ray was seeking housing, but this wasn't just any priest. Ray had been suspended from public ministry after credible allegations surfaced, accusations that he had abused minors. Despite this, Father Ray was allowed to reside at an Augustinian friary, a peaceful brick compound nestled in a quiet neighborhood, and just across the street, a schoolyard buzzed with laughter, children playing, unaware of who now lived a few steps away. For years, the presence of Father Ray in that friary went unmentioned, quiet, untouched. But in the Church's efforts to confront past wrongs, his name resurfaced. And when that story came out some years later, many asked, why would you house a credible accused priest near a school? And the finger turned to the man in charge at the time, Robert Prevost. This wasn't complicated. He had options, but instead he placed Ray in a friary near children. That's not a mistake, that is a decision. To this day, the Vatican has denied wrongdoing in this case. No charges were brought, no child was harmed, as far as anyone knows. But to some, the damage wasn't only about what happened. It was about what could have happened. They always say they didn't know, but they knew enough to keep it quiet. And this was the year 2000. The Boston Globe Spotlight investigation wouldn't explode for another year. The crisis hadn't yet reached the headlines, but behind locked doors, it had already begun. And Robert Prevost, long before he was cardinal, long before he was pope, was already making decisions that, for some, would never sit right.
It is precisely when one sits down and begins to reflect upon those ultimate questions that a choice is available to us.
So, after hearing all this information, what is your take on Robert Prevost or Pope Leo XIV? Let me know in the comments. In the meanwhile, subscribe if you like this kind of content, because I will be putting out a lot more. Thanks for watching, and watch this video next because YouTube thinks it's a right fit for you.
That's a rather pessimistic and dark way to understand what life is about.